Okay, welcome guys here. Welcome back to the podcast. Here with Jeremy. So today we have a special guest here with me. I have Joe Leofsky out in Pennsylvania, one of the experienced operators. Actually, I was introduced to him by a mutual connection that we have, and they were like, "Hey, you definitely have to talk to Joe." So the name has come up quite a bit in this circle. So really happy to having you here, Joe.
Good to be with you.
So Joe, first question, as for the people that don't know you, can you just give a little bit of who you are, what you're doing, pretty much?
Sure. Started my real estate journey probably 40 years ago, buying single family homes. Like most people, it's easy to get started. They're easy to buy, easy to finance, and easy to sell. Somewhere along the way, um, I didn't I didn't like what was going on with property management, so I got my real estate license. Started my own property management company. We're managing about 450 doors. Got up to 500 just right before COVID. Um, but there's always something going on in the property management world. There's always maintenance. There's always things that need to be fixed. And then maybe 2 years before COVID, I had bought my first mobile home park and realized they're significantly easier to manage than single family homes or small apartments. So started actively looking for other parks. About a year and a half ago, sold the property management business, and now I have half a dozen small parks, and that's what I do. That and travel.
Mm. That's interesting that you mentioned property management. As for right now, because you mentioned property management, but what about now? Are you still having property management in-house or using third party?
So
Mm.
I kept the property management company name and the web address and the phone number. Basically sold the book of business, but it's just managing parks. That's all I do. It's just basically Compass Property Management manages my own mobile home parks. Um, it's a I have a brick and mortar office, have the website, have where tenants can sign e-leases. They have access to a tenant portal to pay rent online. We use Appfolio, so it streamlines rent collection. So yeah, I don't manage anything anymore. Sold them all, and I can with Appfolio I can manage the parks that we have remotely. So
Mm. Mm. That's interesting. So how many people do you have on your team?
half of one. My old office manager works for a friend of mine now that's a property manager nearby. She works 2.5 days for him and 2.5 days for me. But I have six small parks. From 12 to 38 spaces each one. So don't have very many doors to manage, and I don't. I have I might have one or two. I have one rent to own, and I do have one double wide that's on a foundation in one of the parks. It used to be the old owner's park, so that's an actual rental unit. But other than that, I don't own any of the units. So we just rent dirt, and I tell people you can't hurt dirt. So back in the old days when I had my rental properties and something happened that I could fix, because I'm a hands-on guy, I would want to go fix it. I can do it better or cheaper. Maybe take me longer than a plumber or electrician, but I know I can do it, and I'm always tempted to want to do it. Now at the mobile home park, I don't have a backhoe. I'm not an electrician. I'm not fixing a wire. I'm not digging up for a leak. So typically, the problems we get now they're more expensive, but they're very few and far between. Um, I just gave a talk the other day, and a lot of people they want to get to the point where they have 50 single family homes, and then they think they're going to retire and it's going to be passive income. with 50 single family homes, if you just average out how long different items, different parts of the house will last, you can easily project what you're going to have to do. So an average roof is going to last 25 years. So if you have 50 homes, every year for the rest of your life, you're going to put two new roofs on. A water heater lasts 10 years. Every year for the rest of your life, you're going to replace five water heaters. Stoves and fridge, if they last 10 years, every year for the rest of your life, you're going to replace five stoves and five fridges. In the apartment world, the average stay is 30 months. In the single family world, it's about 3 to 4 years. Even if you go up and say your single family homes are wonderful and people are going to stay for an average of 5 years, if you have 50 homes, that means every year for the rest of your life, you're finding 10 new tenants.
Wow. I-
In the mobile home park world, the average stay is 13 years. So in my parks, I have one or two people turn over a year. Sometimes I'll go 2 or 3 years with none at all, because in the 55 plus communities, you have you have residents for life. You know, they downsized in their 50s or 60s. They live there until they can't manage on their own anymore, and they're either going out in the box or they're going to a nursing home. So anyway, the mobile home park space is, uh, to me, definitely infinitely preferable to single families.
mm. So, well, what you're buying today, so that's, I mean, no, actually, no. Let me backtrack. Backtrack. As for your first deal, can you tell me more about your first deal? Because definitely, okay, you stopped doing the single family stuff, and you came across mobile home parks, and that's far. How did you jump the gun? Did you get any type of education first, or you just pulled the trigger and just let's see how it goes? So how
Well, being in the property management business, I like reading. I'd read books. I'll go to seminars. I've joined NARPM, National Association of Residential Property Managers. So it's kind of always trying to stay educated. A friend of mine had bought a mobile home park and he liked it, and it intrigued me and made sense. So when this first one came up, it was a small park. It was a 55 plus community. It was 18 spaces, and the owner wanted to finance it. So that was great. So I think it's a long story, and it's in the book. You should get the book. But he wanted to finance it, but I had some health issues, and I couldn't get life insurance. He wanted me to get life insurance, so if something happened to me, it would just pay him out. He didn't have to worry about collecting money. So we worked, and I put a little bit more money down, and he did end up financing probably 70% of the park. Um, but yeah, I had never looked back from the first one. After buying that, and 3 or 4 months go by and have no phone calls, no roofs to replace, and no appliances. It was a no brainer. I just wanted to do more of them.
mm, wow, wow, that's really awesome. And as for now, after buying like another five parts, there's something major change as for your buy box from when you started to right now, or it's always the same.
I like single wides. They're easy to move, easy to set up, and easy to remove. I tell people I like kids, just not yours. I don't want swimming pools. I don't want bicycles. I don't want trampolines and scooters and stuff laying around. So a single family, 2 bedroom, 2 bath lends itself really well to either somebody just getting started with maybe no children or just one, or they're downsizing. So I like single wides, 2 bedroom, 2 baths. And I do have one park that has on-site water and on-site sewer, but the rest of them all have public utilities. And I just don't want to mess with on-site water, on-site sewer. So my buy box is typically going to be tenant-owned homes, public utilities. If there's a few park-owned homes, I would still absolutely look at it. I would probably try and sell them to the tenants, because once again, to park-owned homes. Oh, hang on one second. electrician giving me a call. Yeesh, never good news. Um, you know, there's a lot of people think that tenant-owned homes are better, and you can definitely get a lot more rent, but you're paying the taxes, you're paying the insurance, you're paying the maintenance and the upkeep, and the biggie is it's a rental. They're going to stay 30 months and they're going to leave. And, if your average stay for a tenant owned home is 13 years, you're going to have four turnovers in that home, maybe five. And there's just no way I want to do that. And they are park owned homes, it's easier to get rid of the tenant. In Pennsylvania, it's the Landlord Tenant Act. If they're not paying rent or if they break the lease, it's easy to get rid of a tenant. It's definitely more difficult to get rid of someone who owns their own home. But to me, the benefit is they stay longer, um, and less turnover.
That- That's interesting that you told attach tenant and park home. I know that you guys have the one with Greg where you're trying to sell those uh those three homes, I guess three or four homes that you guys are trying to selling for a while. Can you can you touch a little bit on the park in particularly?
Sure. So the other thing you want to make sure is that the demographics of the area is growing. If you're looking to buy a park and the demographics aren't growing, if the area is losing population, it's going to be tough to fill a park. The park in Berwick, the demographics are pretty flat, maybe up just a touch. You also want to make sure that the average price of a home is at least 200,000 or more if you think you're going to try and sell new homes. And Berwick is right on that cusp. So we did put it's the park's rough. We drug out probably five homes, and they were bad. Somebody had been shot there. And somebody else said there was two people that were shot there in the last 3 years. And drugs. So anyway, got rid of a lot of crap. Put three new homes in. Definitely have one under agreement, and then we have interest in another one. So we're really hoping that if we can get a couple of them sold this summer, we can put a few more in and start to change the looks of the park. Um, it's only an 18 space park. There's five homes on the front, and we ripped all five of them out and put two new ones in there. So love to be able to get those sold and put some more in. It'll change the whole image of the park. So, um, in Lidditz, which is another park I own, that's 38 spaces. It's a completely different area. It's down there in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Average home's 400,000. So we were selling them at 110, 120, no problem. Up in Berwick, we're going to end up selling single wide homes for like 89. So it's a little bit different market because somebody can buy a stick built home for 150 or 160. You're going to have a hard time selling a brand new home for 80 or 90. And also charging a lot rent. The other thing is we want to have nice homes, so we typically we're putting stairs and decks on. We're typically do the gutters and downspouts. We're typically putting in the central air, so we don't have window units hanging out because that just makes it look more like a trailer park. So you're looking for a little bit different demographic of resident. You're not just looking for somebody who's looking for cheap housing. You're looking for somebody who's looking for nice, affordable housing.
So basically, I know I talk with a few operators that is, let's say, for example, that part that you're talking about that where there was some pretty much gang activities or all this stuff, they're gonna basically run away if there's any type of criminal stuff going on. It's always a deal breaker for them. So why is for you that why do you see an opportunity in there and just I feel like it's a heavy project. I mean, I get
Well,
the infill process, I get everything, but don't touch, just change the culture, change the community. It's another uh, type of project.
on the small parks, it's pretty easy to make a big change pretty quick. And like I said, I think we took out five homes. So all of the homes in the very front are gone. Um, it's just on the edge of town. You know, there's actually sidewalks, right by the park. Across the street, there's a cemetery and a small park, so there's never anything going to be across the street. There's a small grocery store which is in walking distance, just the other way of the park. So it's kind of not it's not a bad area at all. Like I said, it's right on the edge of town and cleaned up. I know once we get it cleaned up, it'll be great. It's just you know the the transition is always rough. Getting those first couple homes sold because somebody's got to be the guinea pig, knowing that that maybe we will or maybe we won't fix the park. But once you get the first couple sold, and then we can bring a couple more in. Once you're getting closer to 50% new homes, then people start believing you. Then they believe you're gonna fix the park up. It's those first couple that a little bit of a struggle or challenge.
So nice. It's interesting that you just mentioned trust. People gonna trust you guys if you do something on the park. So my question is, what is the first thing that you guys are doing as for value add when you acquire a new park? This is the first time that we have to do so the tenants gonna trust us and they're gonna say, hey, we actually do the improvements. What's the first thing that you guys
Something
do?
visible. Yeah, with the Lidditz, it was paving all the streets. They were kind of potholes and nasty. It's a much bigger park, and it was close almost $100,000 between trimming some trees, and it was over $85,000 in blacktop, trimming some trees and doing some visual impact. So that made a big visual impact, and the local municipality also appreciates that. So with this one, it was dragging out the old homes. That made a big visual difference. It cleaned it up, um, but even if you take out the old homes, the most that can get you is back to neutral. You know what I mean? Back to sea level. We need to
Mhm.
do something positive and pretty, and that's why we put the new homes in, to make that difference. So yeah, I would say the first thing you want to do is you want to have let people know that there's somebody new, somebody that cares, and that you're going to make a difference. If you're trying to do it on a shoestring budget, it's going to be tough because you're going to have to spend some money. If you're buying a park that needs some work, you need to factor that in, and you need to do that as soon as possible, because you're going to need the township kind of on your side. You're going to want them to approve your building permits and let you start building and putting homes in as quickly as possible. So you kind of want them to be on your side, and if you start cleaning things up, it typically is a good way to help them. Kind of lean towards you on not, I wouldn't say doing you a favor, or not abiding by the rules, but you definitely want them to give you the benefit of the doubt.
Got it. So when you increase the rent, what's your schedule? For example, we talk to a lot of pop and mom and pop's owner that they're still charging the same rent from like 10, 15 years ago. And
They're
we
the parks
we
you want to buy. They're the parks you want to buy because those numbers don't look that great.
yeah.
Um, I don't really raise rent till the park's full. Um, there's a lot of people that go to sell parks, and there's some parks in Western Pennsylvania, that they're charging $500 and $600 a month for lot rent,
Wow.
and that's absurd. But it looks good, and then they're trying to get a high number for the park. Well, those people are leaving; they're not going to stay, or you'll never be able to put a new home in there and get $600 a month lot rent. Not in Western PA, but it looks good. So you have to ask yourself not only what is the park getting and what's that pro forma look like, but once again, what's the demographics? Are people moving in or out of the area? What's your competition? What's a two-bedroom apartment rent for? And what does a basic ranch home sell for? If the basic ranch home sells for 150, you're gonna have a problem. It's got to be up to or over 200 if you're going to try and fill a park, because dragging in old homes is tough. I mean, there's a park right near the Lidditz Park that's closing, and they wanted me to put some homes in mine, and I didn't have any space. And if I didn't, I would let them, because all the homes we put in have the gable in front porches. They just look nicer. I have a park in Central PA. By the time they took the home out, drug it up there, put the footers in, sat and leveled the home. It was $8,900 to
Ooh.
take the home out, drive it 2 hours up to State College, put the footers in, set and level the home. It was $8,900. So, you buy a used home for 15 or 20 grand for a nice used home and spend another 10. Then you still got to skirt it and put the decks in. You got to get you might have to get the AC recharged. You're gonna be at 40 grand. Well, for 60, you can buy a really nice brand new one with a warranty, and you're gonna get a different clientele. You know, if you buy used homes and you have the cheapest house in town, then that's what you're gonna get. You know, I don't necessarily want to have the cheapest. I want to be affordable, but I want to be nice affordable. So even if it's only half a notch up from the cheapest in town, I don't want to be the cheapest in town.
Yeah. And as for financing, you mentioned your first deal was owner financed. And what about the others? Did you get them all on owner finance, or you also financing normally?
Some of them were. One of them, early on, I was still selling some of my single family homes. I just bought it outright. Um, I had a couple of 4 units I sold and did a 1031 into one, but most of the parks did have some owner financing. And it's funny because people say, "Oh, how do you talk them into it?" I don't have to talk them into it. If they're halfway savvy, they know the real estate. They're only going to get, like, right now, you're going to get 3, maybe 4% if you put your money in the bank. And if you sell me a park, I'll give you 5 or 6%. And if you used to own the park, the collateral, the park, the business. What could be better? And if I lend money, I have people sign a confession of judgment. If I borrow money, I don't have a problem signing a confession of judgment. So it kind of speeds up the foreclosure process. So it gives the lender a little bit more comfort. But we've done it with 3 years and 5 years. It depends on the seller and what they want, but seller financing can absolutely work. And I have done some with bank financing. Um, yeah, that just I don't know. Just you find it when you find a good deal, you find a way.
Right
And
away, yeah.
there's a lot of people that kind of get hung up on it, but really the biggest problem you're going to have now is finding a good deal. There's so many people looking, and if it gets on Crexie or LoopNet, if the broker gets it, you're going to be paying retail for it because there's just so many people looking. Ideally, if you can be out there beating the bushes or have somebody knocking on doors or making phone calls, if you can get to them before the broker, then you have a chance of still getting a good deal and not being under pressure to try and be in a hurry to do it. You can kind of work and negotiate, find out how you can solve the seller's problem and make it happen.
Yeah, definitely. So, what's one mistake that you made that okay that changed maybe the way that you're doing business right now, as always in mobile home parks? The biggest
You
mistake that you made, then.
I made lots of them. Probably the one that I still make today is sometimes I can just be an obnoxious prick. And when people say the wrong thing or piss me off, it just irritates me. And sometimes it's a local codes official, and sometimes it's a judge, and sometimes it doesn't matter whether you're right and they're wrong. I just need to keep my mouth shut. Um, there's so many times that people they assume things or they read something that I didn't write, and it just irritates me, and people call me on things, and I'll be, I didn't say that. Well, yeah, you did. Where? Well, no, it doesn't say that, but that's what it implies, and then I'm off. Well, if you're going to piss off codes officials, might as well just sell your park because they can make your life so difficult. So what I try to do now is I've actually talked to codes officials and said, "Hey, you want to write some citations?" They're like, "What?" I said, "You want to write some citations? I got a park that needs cleaned up." And if I tell them, maybe they will, maybe they won't. But if you tell them, it's going to hold a lot more water. So let's go out and take a look. And we go on out. We go out, walk the park, and they'll tell me some things that they really don't like or don't want to see. Sometimes they do write some citations, and then then I'm also talking to the residents, and we try and get it cleaned up. Um, but if you go in, the last couple that I've done, if you go in and you're nice to the codes official and you put your money where your mouth is and you do the dirty work first before you ask them for a favor or before you want them to do something for you, get it cleaned up and give them something to see that you're going to clean things up. Um, that would probably be the best lesson I've learned because um, it really it doesn't matter if you're right. It really doesn't matter if you're right. If you insult somebody or get on their wrong side and they hold a grudge against you, and it could cost you thousands of dollars. So just eat a little crow, bite your tongue, let the codes official think that they're right, and figure out another way around it. But you got to have a good working relationship with codes official. That's probably the biggest one because it's you're going to be married to them until they leave or until the township goes with another company. You're going to be married to those guys, so you really want to stay keep them in good graces.
That's a golden nugget there, right there. Wow. So now that you mentioned basically relationship, because obviously we're not only real estate, we're a people business. Uh, it's a people business, relationship business. So what is something that people like us, wholesaler, that do that really annoys you?
Um, Brokers or reassigners, oh my
Yeah,
gosh, they don't
yeah.
don't have accurate information. Just a few months ago, somebody called me and said, "Hey, we got a park. It's X number," and I'm like, "Yep." I was out that same day. I tell people if it's anywhere near me, if it's something in my buy box, I'll be there within 24 to 48 hours. And I went up and it's looked the same because I'd looked at it myself 5 years ago. I said, I'm interested. Well, they didn't even have the sellers. They had nothing. They had no agreement. They had no written agreement, no verbal agreement that they wanted to sell. So I flipped through my old notes and I found their name and I called them and said, "Hey, you want to sell?" Yeah. Well, they had said they were looking at like 1.5 million, which would have been a good deal. And when I called the owner, he told me he wants five for it. From 1.5 to five, we're off a little bit. So anyway, I wasted a lot of time chasing them back and calling the broker back. And hey, do you have something? And um, so they made a phone call. The wife said she'd be interested in selling it. The husband wasn't, and then they just started peddling the deal, looking for a buyer. So something I've learned is I want to make sure that the park is actually for sale. You know, before we start doing a lot of work, a lot of due diligence. I just saw it yesterday. There's a small park got sold that I had looked at a year or two ago. The guy said it was for sale and went out and looked at it and I let it go and didn't pursue it. Now it did just finally sell, and I'm like, no, I wish I did stick with it, but he didn't have an agreement. So if a broker is going to have an agreement, and even if it's assignable, just have something, some kind of agreement, so the buyers were not wasting time and there's nothing there to buy.
Gotcha. And the follow-up question is, now that you know that we know what annoys you, what is something that's gonna completely kill the relationship? Like, okay, I won't deal with this person anymore.
Um, I don't like the used car salesman approach. You know, it's just give me the facts and data. Don't lie to me. What drives me crazy? Oh, it's a 14 space park, and you go there and it's 12. You know, it's got public utilities. Well, they're in the street, but they're not hooked up. And there's just 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 be factual. I just that would be the biggest thing is just be factual. Make sure that you got your facts straight and don't exaggerate. The numbers are what the numbers are.
That's nice. Okay, if you guys are listening, you are agents, you are wholesalers, you know how to communicate. Just don't lie to Joe.
Or anybody else for that matter.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
just I mean, yeah, I'm big on facts and numbers, and I kind of run the numbers, and yeah, it can get skewed if people are exaggerating. So just be factual.
Mm. What's your what's your plan in the next 3 to 5 years? Are you still aggressive in buying, or are you just
Aggressively
looking?
looking, aggressively looking. There's just not much out there. I'm wrapped up. I've contacts with two other people that I've been talking to for years, hoping that they're going to sell, and they would be really fun projects. I like taking ones that need help and turning them around. And I'd love to find another one. If I don't, I'm not going to force something. I'm not going to make it happen. So yeah, aggressively looking. If there's deals out there, I'd buy two this year if I could, but there's just nothing out there that I'm seeing that's worth buying.
Mm. And as for as for exit strategy, what's your exit strategy? I guess you're holding forever. I'm assuming, but
Yeah,
what's
I might sell one or two of the parks. Um, there's three that I probably would never sell. There's just no reason to. Um, they print cash. They're just cash cows. And there's one park. It's the Wagon Wheel Estates. That's the 18 space park. That's 55 plus community. Somebody had put water lines in, and they used plastic tees. The plastic tees are breaking. I probably replaced 8 in there already. Instead of putting brass or stainless tees in there. So it cost me a couple $1,000. When there's a water leak, the guy goes in, digs it up, and replaces it, and off to the next one. 6 months later, he's back for another one. But there's so few things, and the other thing is when you make the park nice, when you make the park pretty, people want to live there. And if you can buy a home for 70 and take $15,000 to put in the footers, the skirting, steps, decks, gutters, downspouts, AC. That's about it. And if you're into it for 85, and if you can sell it for 109, you're not setting the world on fire. But you can easily make 20 or 25 grand every time you put in a new home. You're increasing the appeal of the park. You're increasing the image of the park, and you're getting paid to do it. So that's probably not something that's going to happen if you buy a home or a park in Western PA and you're dragging in used homes, just for the monthly cash flow. Um, it's just different. It's just different. When people want to live there, it's fun.
right? And as for community with or networking with other operators, how do you how do you feel? How do you feel about the space as far really other operators? Are those people nice to you? What's your relationship with other operators?
So there's so few. I know a few people in Pennsylvania that own parks. I probably know more people who are wanting to buy parks than actually own them. There's just so few. Um, I think most of the people that I know are decent people. They're good people. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
There's just not very many of us because they're just so few and far between. So President Trump is refusing to sign the new House bill. I have no idea why. It had huge
Mhm.
bipartisan support, and one of the things that's in that bill is manufactured homes no longer have to have a frame underneath them. Frank Rolfe, who's big in the space, he's the fifth largest, you know, mobile home owner in the United States,
Mhm.
and he has a podcast that's been on for 10 years. He's always complaining about why do we have to have the metal frame in? Because right now, when you set a home in Pennsylvania, when you set a home, the metal frame has to be a minimum of 12 inches off the ground. So that's the farthest back or the farthest front has to be 12 inches off the ground. The back might be 3 feet off the ground. Plus you have the 1 foot frame. Plus you have the 8 inches of the flooring. So you're always going to be at least 3 feet off the ground, sometimes 4 or 5, and it just doesn't look the same as a stick built house. Well, if there's no frame and the homes can be 2 feet lower, they're gonna have to figure out something to do with the utilities because right now you're accessing the utilities from underneath. So they're gonna have to put in a chase or some kind of access to the utilities. But if they can do that and the home sits 2 foot lower, for the 55 plus communities, that's going to be huge because now the ramp can be 8 or 10 feet long instead of a 20 or 30 foot long ramp, for handicap accessibility. And it's just going to look a lot more like a stick built home. They're going to be easier to finance. If it's not on a frame and it's not a trailer on wheels, you can't back your F 250 up and drive your home to Tennessee. You can't steal the house from the bank. The reason banks that finance mobile homes, the interest rate's a little higher because the collateral's not as secure as a stick built house. So if it's not as easy to move, the collateral's going to stay put. Most homes never leave anyway. They come to the
Yeah.
park, never leave. So anyway, there are some good things in that legislation if Trump will go ahead and sign it. So that's kind of exciting.
Mm. That's also interesting that you mentioned that all the other operators are good dudes because they still have to find someone, someone that is rude or arrogant. I've been having just nice conversation after nice conversation. That's something that I'm not used to as far coming. I never experienced that in the single family space, and I never experienced it in the multifamily space. I mean that's something magical here in the mobile park space that everyone is such a nice individual. So I don't know what's in the mobile park, but I mean I'll never say anything like that. Not even in church. I mean, you're gonna find some asshole in church, but in the, in the MGP war, I mean, that's amazing. That's that's really amazing. I don't know why. What do you think is that? That everyone is so nice.
There's not a lot of stress. There's not a lot of stress. You get a few things figured out. Um, you definitely do want to treat your residents, and I always try and use the word residents as opposed to tenants. Technically, they are residents and they are tenants, but they own their own home, and it's a little bit different mentality than just an apartment where you have a tenant. Where they're renting something temporary and they're on. These guys own their own home. And I think it's a little bit different mindset or a little bit of a mind shift that you need to have when you're managing the property. And you're going to be married to these people. That's the other thing I said. You're going to be married to the codes official. As long as you have that park, you're going to be getting permits and licenses. Well, same thing with these residents. They may be there, on the average, you're going to average over a dozen years. So you want to have a good relationship with them. I personally, I don't friend them on Facebook typically. I'm not like friends or buddies with them, but I want to try and have a very cordial relationship with them because, um, they're going to be there for a long time.
Got it. And you also mentioned Trump. And right now, let's do some little bit predictions. So, how do you see happening in the space in the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, what I'd love to see happen is if the frames go away and the houses just become more like a stick built house and it's no longer a mobile home park. It's no longer a manufactured home and it doesn't require special zoning. It's just a home. And if we could start putting homes in R3 and R4 areas, that would open up the space for more parks. I think the biggest mistake that states make is they're trying to do rent control. They're trying to save people because of the nasty mobile home park owners. It's typically the big ones coming in, buying it, and raising the rent to market rate all at one time, not allowing it to take place over a few years. Frank Rolfe will say that your park lot rent should be about half of what a two-bedroom apartment rents for. If a two-bedroom apartment in your area rents for $1,200, your mobile home lot rent should be about $600. Well, there's some mom and pops that are out there 380, 390. Somebody comes in and they kind of way overpay for the park and they jack the lot rent up to 500 right from day one and 600 the following year. That pisses a lot of people off. So then, people in government want to come out and be helpful, and they want to have rent control. Well, we really don't need rent control. We just need more parks. We need more affordable housing. And if there was more affordable housing, I would fight to bring tenants in. I would pay their transportation costs, or I would have first 6 months free or whatever it takes to get them in there. Um, so what I see is, once there's a change, an image changing, because the homes are a lot nicer. They're, you can buy heat pumps and 2x6 walls and super insulation and nice windows, and the homes are nicer. So I think as the image changes, and more people realize that it's not the trailers from the 60s and 70s, and that it's a great home for a retired couple, all on one level, and can be very handicap friendly without necessarily being ADA compliant, but they're handicap friendly. Um, yeah, I think just loosen up the zoning a little bit. I mean, I don't know, you know, pick a state and then pick a county and look at the map and see where you're allowed to put them. It's like, oh, you can put them there, you can put them there, you can put them here. Oh, well, there's already a park there, there, and here. Like in Pennsylvania, every municipality has to have zoning for each of the classifications. Well, they make mobile homes parks of zoning where there's already parks, and there's no other place to put them,
Mm.
and nobody wants them in. They don't want them in their neighborhood. So I think if the zoning changes, if the classification of the home changes and zoning changes, there'd be a whole lot more affordable housing. I mean, right now, if you pick up a newspaper, the average price of a house in the United States is 400,000. You can buy a really nice single wide, really nice one for 100,000. So, what are you willing to give up as a home buyer? You have to give up something, or you have to pay 400,000 for the average. I'm just saying for the average. What are you willing to give up? Well, if you give up size and quality and location, you can probably buy a house for 150 or 200,000, or you could have a park in a nice area and have a small house that's quality built, and you have to give up ownership of the dirt. That's what you have to give up.
Yeah.
If you want to live in, Lidditz, Pennsylvania, where a house is 450, and you want to live there, you want to live there in $100,000 house, well, then you have to give up ownership of the dirt. Otherwise, it's $450,000. So if people are willing to do that, and typically, as they're aging and they're only, they're looking for a retirement home, and they're willing to do that, um, it could work. So anyway, um, I don't see I don't see self storage continuing on the pace that self storage has the last 5 or 6 years. They're building millions of square feet of self storage, and at some point in time, people are going to stop storing their crap, and you can't just keep going up forever. There's 10,000 baby boomers retiring every day. Price of real estate is going up, so I can't see how the mobile home park space is going to do anything but continue to go up. There's nothing that's going to cause it to even plateau, let alone go down.
But do you see or do you feel that we're leading toward a change, or still, probably maybe no? Do you feel like, good feeling, even looking at a political environment, then maybe, yeah, that's something that might change. or no? What do you
Well,
feel?
rent control is a little bit scary. So let me tell you about California. There are mobile home parks in California that have a view of the Pacific Ocean. And there's people that sell their double wide. I'm being negative and sarcastic, but they're selling their double wide trailer for $1 million.
Ooh,
Well,
ooh.
and some are more, believe it or not. If you can sell your double wide trailer for $1 million, the same one that you can buy a double wide down the street brand new for 200,000, what am I missing?
Mm,
I go down here and I can buy a brand new one for 200, or I can come up to this mobile home park and buy one for $1 million. Well, the problem is rent control, and they can't raise the rent but so much to whatever the law is in California. So if their lot rent is $1,000 a month, and it should be $1,800 or $2,000 a month because it's a nice park in a nice area with the view of the ocean, and they can't get there, people take advantage of that, and it increases the value of the home beyond what you can actually replace it for. And that's the problem with rent control. So, how many new parks are there going to be built in California? None. Zero. Zip. Never. It will never happen. So the ones that are there become more valuable, but it's not the value of the home. So you're buying that home. You're buying that space that that's protected by the government under rent control is what they're buying. They're buying a protected, piece of dirt protected by rent control. So we don't have that in Pennsylvania yet. They're talking about it, and so that would be a concern because I've spent sometimes 2 years not making any money from a park, just putting time and effort back into and smiling the whole time, because I know what's coming back. And I'd sell a home, I'd make 20 or 25,000 from it. I would instantly dump it right back in, and that's including buying another home to flip. But the other 20 is getting in. I put self storage units in. I got some small self storage units for the park, so people that don't want to put sheds in can use self storage, and we upgraded the electric, and just just making the park nice, and then the payday comes later. But if there's rent control, it'll be different. That is a concern.
got him. One thing, you wrote a book. The, you wrote a book. So you're the first person that actually I talked to that wrote a book about parks. So why did you write a book? W-
It was actually fun. It's called Small Parks, Big Profit, and um, so to me, small parks are anything under like 50 spaces. You're probably not going to need an on-site manager because they're tenant-owned homes. With park-owned homes, you probably would need one because you need a full-time handyman to keep everything under repair. But it's like a community. It's like a little neighborhood. It's some of them are only 20, 25 spaces, and the neighbors barely even know they're there. It's not like a 200 space park where everybody talks about the park down the street, the trailer park or whatever. So I love the small parks. They're affordable. They're super easy to change. Like the one we're doing up in Berwick. We bought it in November. It was cold winter. We started dragging homes out, early spring, got them out. Put in 5 sets of footers right from the get go. We know we're putting in 5 new homes, and we know they're 16 by 66s. So we put the new footers in. We got 2 in the front, one on the other side. So on the outside, we're trying to change the outside first. But it's fun. So the book was fun. I didn't have to do a lot of research because it was just talking from my own experience. In the first 3 or 4 chapters, I give people homework assignment. Like so the first chapter, we talk about what is a TOH, what's a POH, what's a single wide, what is skirting and steps and footers, and just some of the language that we use in the industry. So if they are talking to somebody, learn the language. Um, Second chapter, I don't even remember. Somewhere around there, I said, maybe go to a place that builds them. Go to Champion or Eagle River, whoever. Go look at see how they're built and look at the homes. Go to Crexy and LoopNet and look at what's for sale. Define your buy box. Some people, maybe they're younger, they're aggressive, and they want that extra money, and they want a whole bunch of park owned homes. They just want to get park owned homes and get those rents up, three times what it would be for just lot rent, and then maybe they plan on 5 or 10 years from now they're going to convert them over to rent to own or tenant owned homes then. But for right now, they're really looking for that additional income. So, what's your buy box? Um, and at the end of each chapter is a little bit of a homework assignment. So, by the time you get to chapter 5 or 6, you're kind of feeling a little bit comfortable about, the language and how to talk to brokers. What is a manufactured house? How's it built? Is it are they good quality? And then how to look for them and kind of so there's like a 30-second rule. 30 seconds.
Mm.
If you tell me about that park in Florida, 30 seconds. You tell it's a 55 plus community. I think you said it was public sewer, well water, or the other way around. The area, and I'll do a real quick demographic check. So then after that 30 seconds, do I need to do more? Then the next step is like 30 minutes. And in 30 minutes, then I'll get a more detailed approach. And then if that passes, that's when due diligence really starts. So, because if you're going to look on Crexy or LoopNet, you can't afford to do due diligence on every one. You need to know what your buy box is and what are your deal breakers. If it's a deal breaker, next,
Yes.
it could be right next door. But if it's got a lagoon or if it's got a wastewater treatment plant, so there are a few. There's a caveat. Like if you called me up and told me I got this great place at da da da, and it's got a lagoon. Nope. But is public sewer nearby? If public sewer is nearby, and a lot of people aren't going to want to buy it because it's a lagoon or maybe a wastewater treatment plant, but can I hook up the public sewer? It's going to cost a couple $100,000 to hook up the public sewer, then it could be a good deal. But if it's a lagoon or wastewater treatment plant out in the middle of nowhere and there's no public sewer nearby, that for me
Nope.
is a hard no every time, every time.
Mm,
So the book was fun. Um, yeah, it was fun.
got it. Last question that I have for you is for you said obviously that you bought a lot of your park with cash, some other owner finance. Obviously, I guess you're refinancing to cash those sellers out. Are you allow any maybe family friends or any other investor into your deals as private money lenders?
I haven't yet. Greg's probably the closest thing to that. I've known Greg for 40 years. He has a lot of single family homes, and I kind of wanted to get into the space. So that's kind of why we bought this one together. I do have two or three people that keep telling me they'd love to do something, but for me, there's some guys in Lancaster County that are really schmucks. They are really schmucks. They did syndication down in Florida and Texas. They did syndication with ATMs, and they screwed people out of millions of dollars,
Wow.
millions and millions and millions of dollars. And I have zero interest in ever doing anything like that. And they have all kinds of reasons and excuses. The one was they were buying apartments. They bought them in Bradenton and Sarasota and Corpus Christi and Dalton and all these areas that they thought they were going to do great. And then interest rates changed and they had no plan. They couldn't finance out and they lost deals. And the ATM was a complete Ponzi scheme. That was millions and millions of dollars. So I'd be really careful with other people's money. And when people ask me, well, what should I do? Well, so I'm in Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania's got a turnpike that goes from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh, and it's expensive. It's a $50 turnpike, but it can be really expensive if you get a ticket on it. Well, you ask me how to get to Pittsburgh, and I tell you, oh, just get on a turnpike, drive 75 miles an hour, you'll be there in 3 or 4 hours. Well, if you drive 75 and a 60 and you get a ticket, then you're blaming me. You said, oh, well, Jim told me I'm 75 and I could be there. Well, I'm willing to take that risk, and sometimes you get busted. Well, if you tell me about a mobile home park, well, you said it was going to be a good deal, and it's got, whatever, it doesn't have public water or public sewer. Um, because well, it wasn't that far long ago, but like like I said, if you piss the wrong people off, like DEP, which I did, um, and I wanted to put meters in. Well, in Pennsylvania, if you want to charge for water, you're going to have to be a uh, water or sewer authority or whatever. If there's more than 15 homes or 25 people, you'd be considered a water company if you're selling water. So even though I'm buying public water from a known entity, if I want to sell water to my residents, I have to meet the exact same standard they do. Daily testing for 42 different things, you know, everything. And it's thousands and thousands of dollars. So there's no way it's worth it. So when I wanted to put meters in and charge people for water, DEP found out about it, well, they won, but it got to the point where they told me not even to install the meters, which I did anyway. Because I told them I'm gonna know if there's a leak, you know. So they literally made me sign a paper saying that I wouldn't charge for water. So I don't. But I still want the meters there because somebody's paying for the water. They say they're all about conservation, and it's proven, nationwide that when you charge people for water, they use 30% less. But just because they're going to use less. So I don't know where the disconnect is, but so I signed a paper saying I'm not going to charge them for water, so I don't charge them for water, but I can still see if there's water being used or wasted. And we call them up, hey, check your toilets. There might be a leak, and that keeps our expenses on the water side, down. So
Wow,
anyway.
that's really interesting. Okay, Joe, thank you so much for hanging out with me. We're hanging out for a lot. Uh, we went over time, so I don't want to keep you here till tomorrow, even if I had still few questions, but I felt like we went through a lot, a lot. As for last thing that I wanted to ask you, this really the last thing. This what is something that you want to say to someone that just started that want to buy his first mobile home park that is just starting to this space, something that feel first thing that come to mind that you want to say to someone that is just starting to the space.
So I do talk to a lot of people. I talk to people all the time for free and just kind of give them free advice. If they're already into real estate and they have a few properties, that definitely helps. If they don't and they're trying to get into the space, it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve. There are not a lot of books out there you can buy. There's a few podcasts. I would say you definitely want to, listen to some podcasts. You want to read some books. You want to talk to somebody in this space because it is a little bit different. If you want to get into single family homes or rentals or apartment buildings or even self storage, there's several people you can find, and there's probably some you can find locally in your local RIA or your real estate meetup. You're not going to find very many mobile home park owners, and it's going to be tough to find somebody to use as a mentor. So I would say the very first thing you want to do is really get educated as much as you can. It's going to probably take, even if you're doing it extensively, it's going to take you a few months just to kind of get a feel for what mobile home parks are. Go out and drive them, look at them, see what they're like, and then try and find somebody who's done it because there are some little niche things that are going to be completely different than investing in a single family home. But with that being said,
Hmm.
single family home expense ratio is going to be 50%. That's just what it is. In a well run park, it's 25%.
Wow.
So I'll take it.
So thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Joe, definitely I know for a fact that we're gonna do some business down the line, either the one in Florida that I talked to or something in Alabama or something in Pennsylvania that's your neighborhood. So something, we have people looking for deals, so for sure we're gonna find something. So thank you. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for an hour plus.
You're welcome. It was fun, and yeah, we'll talk again.
Okay, and again, people. Oh, where do people can find you if they want to send you any deals? Any wholesaler or any agents that
Um,
is looking, is
yeah,
watching the podcast, where do they find you?
probably Joe at compass.property. That's my email. One of my emails. Just Joe at compass.property. And that's still related back to Compass Property Management from when we had the management company. And
Got
then,
it.
of course, if they want to buy the book, I think that my name. I think I'll put my name and phone number in there. I've had a few people contact me from that, but it's something I love. I really enjoy real estate. I really enjoy it, and it's something I never get bored of talking about.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, thank you so much, everybody. It was nice hanging out with you guys. And again, if you guys want to send any deals to to Joe, you have his email. I'm gonna also put it in down below here in the down below in the description. If you guys also want to send me deals, want to JV or want me JV on some deals to send to some buyer, I'm gonna leave my email in there. Thank you so much again, everybody, and peace.
All righty, we'll see ya. Off to you.